I honestly do not know where to start with this mess, but I need an outside perspective because I'm driving myself insane trying to make sense of it. Here is the background. I was married to my ex-husband Jake for 6 years, from ages 20 to 26. We met in community college, got married way too young, and thought love was enough to conquer the world. Jake came from a comfortable middle-class family. His dad owned a construction business, and his mom worked in real estate. They were not millionaires, but definitely secure. I grew up the opposite. My mom was a single parent working 3 jobs, and my dad was never around. I had been working since I was 14, saving what I could for school, but even with financial aid, community college was a struggle. When Jake and I got serious, his parents liked me. They seemed to respect that I worked hard and was not after money. After we married, Jake pushed me to transfer to a 4-year university. I had been studying business, but I was terrified of loans. I had seen how debt could destroy people. I did not want to start married life buried in it. Jake insisted it was an investment. The turning point came when his parents invited us to dinner and offered to pay for my bachelor's degree. They explained they had saved for Jake's education, but since he joined his dad's business instead, they wanted to use it for me. They stressed it was a gift, not a loan. Jake was thrilled and said he was proud that his parents believed in me. I was overwhelmed. Nobody had ever invested in me like that. I cried that night, amazed at my luck. They ended up paying for tuition, books, gas, and even bought me a reliable used car to commute an hour to the state university. For 3 years, I pushed hard, taking full loads and summer classes. Jake's parents were nothing but supportive. They asked about classes, cheered when I made the dean's list, and his mom came to my graduation. I felt like I finally had a family. But Jake and I started growing apart. He wanted to settle down, buy a house in our hometown, start having kids. I wanted to explore opportunities, maybe move to a bigger city and figure out my path before locking myself into that life. The arguments became constant. Eventually, we realized we wanted different futures. The divorce was amicable, no kids, few assets, just the realization we had grown apart. His parents were sad but never blamed me. At the courthouse, his mom hugged me and said she was proud of me. Afterward, I moved to Denver, got a job at a marketing firm and started building my life. Jake stayed home and worked with his dad. We barely kept in touch beyond birthdays and social media likes. But there was no bad blood. Fast forward 4 years, I'm now 30, doing well in Denver. I have been promoted twice, live in a nice apartment, and am in a serious relationship. Jake remarried 2 years after our divorce to a woman named Brittany. They seemed happy, bought a house, adopted a dog. Then last Tuesday, I got a call from an unknown number. A woman immediately started screaming at me, calling me disgusting and demanding I repay every penny I had stolen from her family. She introduced herself as Brittany, Jake's wife. She said she'd just learned about the money his parents spent on my degree and that I had taken advantage of their generosity, knowing the marriage would not last. I was stunned. That money had been given freely years before she even met Jake. I explained it was a gift, not a loan. But she called me a liar and a gold digger. She said she and Jake wanted a bigger house and that I needed to pay back over $70,000 with interest in 30 days, or she would sue for theft and fraud. The call left me shaken. Had I misunderstood the arrangement? Was I legally obligated somehow? Did Jake secretly resent me all these years? I could not sleep, replaying every conversation with his parents. The next day, I texted Jake to ask if we could talk about Brittany's threats. He called back quickly, confused. He said he had no idea she contacted me. When I told him about the repayment demand, he was silent. then said he needed to speak to her. 3 hours later, he called again, sounding drained. He said Brittany had been stewing about the college money for months. She believed it was essentially her inheritance, and that I had stolen her future children's financial security. He assured me his parents had always meant it as a gift, and that there was no repayment expected. He apologized for Brittany's behavior and said he would handle it. But the next day, Brittany called again, angrier than before. She accused me of ruining her marriage by telling Jake about her phone call. She said he had spoken to his parents, who confirmed it was a gift, and now she looked like the bad guy. She accused me of manipulating Jake and his family, insisting that by reaching out to him, I had proven I was obsessed with him and trying to break them up. I reminded her that I had only contacted Jake because she threatened legal action, but she refused to listen. She ended the call by saying she would contact a lawyer not only about the money, but also for harassment and interference in her marriage. She claimed she had evidence of me manipulating the situation, though I have no idea what she meant. At this point, I began to wonder if she was experiencing a mental health crisis or something else entirely. None of her accusations made sense. All I had done was protect myself from legal threats. I started researching. Everything I read suggested there was no legal ground for her to stand on. The money was clearly a gift, given years ago with no written agreement and under a marriage that no longer exists. Even if she tried to sue, she would have no case, but the idea of being dragged into court was still terrifying. I'm also worried about what this was doing to Jake and his parents. From what he told me, they were upset when he called, not at me, but at Brittany for causing drama over something long settled. I hated that my past was suddenly creating stress in his family. Now I feel trapped. 4 years after an amicable divorce, when I thought we had all moved on, I am suddenly accused of theft and ruining marriages. It makes no sense. So here are my questions. Is there any scenario where I actually owe that money back? Should I take Brittany's legal threats seriously, or is she just lashing out? And most importantly, how do I handle this without escalating things further? Because right now, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Update 1. It's been 3 days since I posted this, and things have somehow gotten even more complicated. First, thank you to everyone who commented with advice and reassurance. Reading all your responses definitely helped me feel less crazy about this whole situation. So here's what's happened since Tuesday. I decided to take some of your advice and contacted a lawyer just to make sure I understood my legal position. I found one who specializes in family law and contract disputes, and she agreed to a consultation. After I explained the whole situation, she basically confirmed what most of you said, that there's virtually no way Brittany has any legal grounds to demand repayment of money that was clearly given as a gift during my marriage to Jake. The lawyer said that even if Brittany wanted to pursue this, she would need to prove that there was some kind of agreement or understanding that the money would be repaid, which clearly doesn't exist. She also said that the statute of limitations would probably be an issue since the money was given over 7 years ago. Basically, she told me not to worry about the legal threats, and that if I actually got served with any papers, to contact her immediately. But that she doubted it would come to that. That made me feel a lot better. But then Thursday evening, I got a call from Jake's mom, Linda. She said she had been thinking about me since Jake had called her about Brittany's demands, and she wanted to reach out to make sure I was okay. We ended up talking for almost an hour, and it was actually really nice to catch up with her. She asked about my job and my life in Denver, and I could tell she was genuinely happy to hear that things were going well for me. But then she told me some stuff that really put this whole situation into perspective. Apparently, Brittany has been causing issues about me for their entire relationship. Linda said that Brittany has always been uncomfortable with the fact that Jake was married before and has made several comments over the years about how Jake's family was too generous to me during the divorce. Linda also told me that Brittany has been pressuring Jake to ask his parents for money for their house down payment, and that they had refused because they felt like Jake and Brittany needed to be financially independent as adults. Apparently, Brittany had specifically mentioned the money they spent on my education during those conversations, saying it wasn't fair that they had helped me but wouldn't help Jake's current family. Linda said she was really disappointed in Brittany's behavior and that she and Jake's dad had been having serious doubts about her for months. She said Brittany had been increasingly controlling and manipulative, and that this whole situation with me was just the latest example of her trying to cause drama and get attention. The most concerning thing Linda told me was that Jake had confided in his parents that Brittany had been going through his phone and social media accounts, looking for evidence that he was still in contact with me. Apparently she had seen the birthday texts we occasionally exchanged and had convinced herself that if there was still something going on between us, even though Jake had told her repeatedly that we were just being polite and that there was nothing romantic about our occasional contact. Linda said that Jake was really struggling with his marriage and that he had even asked his parents if they thought he had made a mistake marrying Brittany. She said it broke her heart to see him so stressed and unhappy, especially since he had seemed so excited about his new relationship when they first got together. She also told me that Jake's dad was considering consulting with their own lawyer about the situation, not to go after Brittany or anything, but to make sure they had documentation that the college money was a gift in case this whole thing escalated further. Apparently they were worried that Brittany might try to cause problems for them, or make false accusations if she didn't get what she wanted. The conversation with Linda left me feeling really conflicted. On one hand, I was relieved to know that Jake's parents didn't blame me for any of this and that they understood I wasn't trying to cause problems. But on the other hand, I felt terrible knowing that my existence was apparently a source of ongoing stress in Jake's marriage. Then yesterday, Friday, I got a text from Jake asking if we could talk again. When I called him back, he sounded really defeated. He said that things at home had been really bad since Brittany found out that he had called his parents about the college money. According to Jake, Brittany was furious that his parents had taken my side and was now convinced that his entire family was against her. Jake told me that Brittany had given him an ultimatum. Either he supported her in getting the money back from me, or she was going to assume that he was still in love with me and that their marriage was over. He said she had been crying and screaming for days, saying that I was trying to destroy their relationship and that his family would always choose me over her. The crazy part is that Jake said Brittany had started packing her things and threatening to move back in with her parents if he didn't agree to help her pursue legal action against me. She had apparently contacted a lawyer on her own, but when the lawyer heard the details of the situation, they told her she didn't have a case and refused to take her on as a client. Jake asked me if there was any way I would be willing to pay back even a portion of the college money just to save his marriage. He said he knew it wasn't fair to ask and that his parents had made it clear the money was a gift, but that he was desperate to find a solution that would make Brittany happy. I felt really bad for Jake, but I told him I couldn't and wouldn't pay back money that was freely given to me, especially when I had done nothing wrong. I explained that giving in to Brittany's demands would just enable her controlling behavior, and that it wouldn't actually solve the underlying problems in their marriage. Jake said he understood, and that he had kind of expected that to be my answer. He apologized again for his wife's behavior, and said that he was starting to realize that the problems in his marriage went way deeper than just the college money situation. We ended the conversation with Jake saying that he needed to make some serious decisions about his relationship and his future. He thanked me for being understanding and said that no matter what happened with Brittany, he was grateful for the time we had been married and for everything his parents had done to help me succeed. I haven't heard from anyone since that conversation yesterday, but I have a feeling this whole situation is far from over. I'm trying to focus on my own life and not get too wrapped up in their marital drama, but it's hard not to feel involved when I'm apparently at the center of it. I guess I'm still processing all of this and trying to figure out what, if anything, I should do next. Part of me wants to just block everyone's numbers and pretend this whole thing never happened, but another part of me feels I should be available in case Jake needs support dealing with what seems like a pretty toxic situation. Update 2. Okay, you guys are not going to believe what happened yesterday. This whole situation has taken such a weird turn that I'm still trying to process it all. So it had been quiet for a few days after my last update. I hadn't heard from Jake, Brittany, or anyone else, and I was starting to hope that maybe the whole thing was just going to blow over. I was focusing on work, trying to put the drama behind me, when I got a call yesterday afternoon from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, it was a woman who introduced herself as Rebecca, and she said she was Brittany's sister. She apologized for calling me out of the blue and said she had gotten my number from Brittany's phone. She asked if we could meet for coffee because she had some information about the situation she thought I needed to know. I was immediately suspicious because this whole thing had been so crazy that I wasn't sure if this was some kind of trap or if Brittany had put her sister up to calling me. But Rebecca sounded genuinely concerned and said that she was worried about her sister's behavior and wanted to talk to me before things got worse. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown yesterday evening. Rebecca turned out to be a few years older than Brittany. She seemed really normal and level-headed compared to what I had experienced with her sister. She started by apologizing for Brittany's behavior and said that the family had been concerned about her for months. Then she told me some stuff that completely changed my understanding of this whole situation. Apparently, Brittany has been having serious financial problems that she's been hiding from Jake. Rebecca said that Brittany had gotten involved with some kind of multi-level marketing scheme about a year ago and had convinced herself she was going to make tons of money selling wellness products or something. Instead of making money, Brittany had apparently maxed out several credit cards and taken out personal loans to buy inventory and pay for training courses and conferences. Rebecca said the family had tried to warn Brittany that she was getting scammed, but she wouldn't listen and kept insisting that she was building a business empire. The financial situation had gotten so bad that Brittany was apparently behind on her car payments and had been borrowing money from friends and family members without telling Jake. Rebecca said that Brittany had even asked their parents for a loan to help with the down payment on the bigger house she and Jake were trying to buy. But when they asked what the money was for, she had lied and said it was for home improvements. Rebecca said that when Jake's parents refused to give Jake and Brittany money for their house, Brittany had become obsessed with the idea that they had treated me better than they were treating her. She had apparently spent hours going through Jake's social media and old photos, trying to find evidence of ongoing contact between us. The most shocking thing Rebecca told me was that Brittany had been spending hours online trying to find information about me and my life in Denver. She had apparently convinced herself that I was somehow still manipulating Jake or his family, and she had been obsessively going through my social media accounts and even looking up my workplace and address online. Rebecca said that the whole college money situation had started when Brittany had asked Jake's parents directly for financial help, and they had mentioned that they had already spent their extra money years ago helping with my education. Instead of understanding that it was a gift that had been given during a completely different relationship, Brittany had latched onto the idea that this money was somehow still available and that I had stolen it from her. Rebecca told me that she and the rest of Brittany's family were really worried about her mental state, and they thought she might be having some kind of breakdown due to the financial stress and the pressure of trying to keep up appearances with Jake. She said Brittany had become increasingly paranoid and controlling, and that she had been lashing out at everyone who tried to help her see reason. The reason Rebecca had reached out to me was because she had overheard a phone conversation where Brittany was talking about taking me to small claims court and making plans to contact my workplace and friends to tell them lies about me. Rebecca was worried that Brittany was becoming more desperate as her financial situation got worse and that she might do something really damaging. Rebecca wanted to warn me that Brittany might be escalating her efforts and that she was becoming more desperate as her financial situation got worse. She also wanted me to know that Jake had no idea about the extent of Brittany's financial problems and that she had been actively hiding the debt from him. After Rebecca left, I spent the rest of the evening trying to figure out what to do with this information. On one hand, I felt like I should probably tell Jake what his wife had been up to behind his back. On the other hand, I didn't want to get more involved in their marital problems than I already was. I decided to sleep on it. But then this morning I got a text from Jake asking if I could call him as soon as possible. When I called him back, he sounded really shaken up. He said that he had discovered some financial documents that Brittany had been hiding, and he was just now realizing how much debt she had accumulated. Apparently, Jake had been trying to get pre-approved for a mortgage for their new house, and the lender had pulled a credit report that showed all of Brittany's hidden debt. He said he confronted her about it, and she had completely broken down, admitting to the MLM scheme and the loans and all the money she had borrowed from people. Jake said that during their fight, Brittany had also admitted to planning to take me to small claims court, and that she had been researching ways to contact my workplace and friends to spread lies about me. He was horrified that his wife had been planning to harass me and spending time she should have been using to fix their financial problems instead of obsessing over me. He told me that he had made the decision to separate from Brittany and that he was going to be staying with his parents for a while. He said he realized her behavior towards me was just a symptom of much bigger problems and that he couldn't trust someone who had been lying to him about so many important things. Jake apologized profusely for everything his wife had put me through and said that he was going to make sure she didn't contact me again. He also said that he was going to handle all her debt himself because he felt responsible for not seeing the warning signs earlier. I told Jake I was sorry his marriage was falling apart, but that I was glad he was finally seeing the truth about Brittany's behavior. I also told him about my conversation with Rebecca, and he said that confirmed a lot of what he was already suspecting about his wife's state of mind. The whole situation is just so sad and bizarre. I never could have imagined that my existence would cause so much chaos in someone's life, especially someone I had never even met. I feel bad for Jake because he obviously married someone who had serious problems that she was hiding from him. But I'm also relieved that this whole nightmare might finally be over. Jake said he was going to talk to a lawyer about divorce proceedings and that he would make sure any legal documents included provisions preventing Brittany from contacting or harassing me in the future. He also said his parents wanted to reach out to me again to apologize for their daughter-in-law's behavior, but I told him that wasn't necessary since none of this was their fault. I'm hoping this is the end of the drama, but something tells me that Brittany isn't going to go quietly. I guess we'll see what happens. Update 3. I honestly cannot believe I'm writing another update to this insane story, but things have taken another unexpected turn. I need to get this all down because it is so unreal that I'm not sure anyone would believe it if I just told them. It has been about a week since my last update, and I thought everything was finally settling down. Jake had moved out and was staying with his parents. I had not heard from Brittany since before I met with her sister Rebecca. I was beginning to think this nightmare was finally over and that I could go back to normal life. Then yesterday morning, my boss called and asked me to come in early because of a situation. When I arrived, she told me someone claiming to be a lawyer had called the company saying I was involved in a fraud case and warning that my employer might be called to testify. The caller accused me of stealing from a client, but hung up when my boss asked for documentation. My boss suspected it was a scam or harassment, but wanted me to know. I knew immediately it was Brittany. Furious that she was now targeting my career, I called the lawyer I had consulted earlier. She explained that impersonating a lawyer is a serious crime, and that if we could prove Brittany was behind it, there could be criminal charges. She suggested I contact Jake, since maybe he could talk to Brittany before things got worse. When I called him, Jake sounded exhausted. He said Brittany had been calling him non-stop for days, begging him to come back one moment and threatening to ruin his life the next. She had also been harassing his parents to the point where they had blocked her number, and then Jake told me something that made my blood run cold. When he confronted her about the workplace call, Brittany laughed and said that was nothing compared to what she had planned. She had been keeping a list of my social media contacts and wanted to reach out to my friends, family, and professional network to spread lies that I was a fraud and a gold digger. Jake said he tried reasoning with her, but she was beyond rational. She kept insisting everything would be fine if I just paid back the college money, and admitted to manipulating their relationship. The call left me scared and vulnerable. It became clear she had been planning this harassment campaign for a long time, and I had no idea how far she would go. That afternoon I received the most shocking call yet. A woman introduced herself as Detective Martinez with the local police. She said Brittany had filed a report accusing me of stalking and harassing her, calling her workplace, following her around town, and threatening her family. The detective explained she had already spoken to Brittany but found inconsistencies and wanted my side before moving forward. I went to the station and spent hours explaining the situation from the beginning. I showed her text messages and call logs. I gave contact information for Jake, his parents, Rebecca, and my lawyer. Detective Martinez was thorough and professional, and I could tell she realized Brittany's story did not match the evidence. She reminded me filing a false police report is a serious crime and noted Brittany seemed disconnected from reality during her interview, rambling and making nonsensical accusations. The detective said she would follow up with my contacts and warn me Brittany might escalate if her false report failed. She also gave me information on restraining orders. When I got home that evening, I had 3 voicemails from unknown numbers. One was from a supposed debt collector about educational expenses. Another was from someone pretending to be the IRS about my taxes. The last was just heavy breathing before hanging up. I realized Brittany was probably using spoofed numbers to harass me, so I saved the voicemails and began keeping a detailed log of every suspicious call. The next morning, Detective Martinez called with updates. She had spoken to Jake and his parents, and their accounts directly contradicted Brittany's claims. She also discovered that the workplace call had come from a number registered to Brittany, proving she had impersonated a lawyer. Based on her findings, she was recommended that the district attorney pursue charges for filing a false report, harassment, and possibly impersonating a legal professional. The detective explained that Jake had provided information about Brittany's financial problems and erratic behavior. He had found evidence that she had lied to many people for loans, spinning elaborate stories to justify her requests, Most shocking of all, the detective told me this was not the first time Brittany had done this. She had a history of making false accusations against people she viewed as threats, including a previous boyfriend's ex-girlfriend and a co-worker. Jake was cooperating fully with the investigation. He provided documentation of Brittany's debts and lies and agreed to testify if the case went to trial. Detective Martinez said charges would likely lead to a restraining order barring Brittany from contacting me or anyone close to me, and violating it could bring further charges. As I processed everything, I could not believe how far this situation has spiraled. What began as a strange call about college money had escalated into a criminal investigation. I felt terrible for Jake, who had clearly been living with lies and manipulation for years, but also relieved that the truth was emerging. My lawyer told me that if charges were filed, the case would likely take months to resolve, but at least I would have legal protection from more harassment. It has been exhausting and surreal, but also eye-opening about how quickly someone's issues can spiral and drag others into chaos. This morning, Jake texted me to apologize again and let me know he filed for divorce. He planned to move back to Denver for a fresh start. His parents supported his decision and were relieved he was finally free from a toxic situation. He also told me something chilling. While packing Brittany's things, he found notebooks full of detailed plans about how to get money from me and his parents. She had been plotting this campaign for months, even researching legal loopholes and ways to pressure me until I paid her. Even scarier, she had written down personal details about me, my apartment complex, my license plate, and even information about my boyfriend she must have gotten from deep social media stalking. Jake turned everything over to the detective as proof of her obsession. Since then, I have locked down all my accounts and become much more cautious about what I share online. This whole ordeal has changed how I think about privacy. The strangest part is how easily things could have gone differently. If Brittany had been honest with Jake about her finances or gotten help for her mental health, none of this would have happened. Instead, she created an elaborate fantasy where I was the villain, which destroyed her marriage and may result in criminal charges. Sometimes people create their own problems and then look for someone else to blame when their lives collapse. I just wish I had not been caught in the crossfire of her breakdown. For now, I'm waiting to hear back from Detective Martinez on whether charges will officially be filed. Hopefully, this is the beginning of the end and I can finally close this bizarre chapter. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.